Let me ask you something uncomfortable. What if the number in your bank account right now, the one you check every morning, is lying to you? Not in the way you think, not because someone stole from you, not because your employer made an error, but because the entire way you've been taught to measure your financial health is wrong. Most people think they're doing okay. They're paying their bills. They have a job. They can afford to eat out on weekends. They haven't missed rent. And so they tell themselves the story that millions of people tell themselves every single day. I'm fine. Things are tight, but I'm managing. But managing isn't the same as winning. And not drowning isn't the same as swimming. Here's what nobody is saying out loud. There is an entire generation of people who look financially stable on the surface and are quietly falling apart underneath. People with decent salaries who have almost nothing saved. People who work 50 hours a week and still feel broke. People who are one unexpected bill away from serious crisis and have no idea. This video is going to show you 12 signs that your financial situation is worse than you think. Not to scare you, not to shame you, but because the first step to fixing something is actually seeing it clearly, without the filters, without the excuses, without the comfortable stories we tell ourselves. By the end of this, you'll understand not just what these signs are, but why they happen. And that's where real change begins. Let's start with the one that almost nobody talks about. Sign 1. Your income has grown, but your anxiety hasn't gone down. Think about this for a second. 5 years ago, you were making less money. And you thought, once I make a little more, I'll feel better. Once I get that raise, I'll breathe easier. Once I cross that salary number, things will feel secure. So you got the raise. Maybe you got 2. And somehow, the anxiety is still there. Sometimes it's even worse. This is one of the most psychologically revealing signs of financial trouble, because it means your spending has quietly expanded to meet your income every single time. Psychologists call it the hedonic treadmill. Every time your lifestyle gets better, your brain resets its baseline. What used to feel like luxury becomes necessity, and your financial anxiety stays exactly where it was, just with better furniture. The person earning $3,000 a month and the person earning $9,000 a month can feel equally broke, because lifestyle inflation is invisible while it's happening. It doesn't feel like spending more, it feels like living normally. Sign 2. You don't actually know your monthly expenses. Not roughly, not approximately. Actually know, down to the real number. Most people, when asked what they spend each month, will give you a number that's 20 to 40% lower than reality. This isn't dishonesty. It's a psychological blind spot called the planning fallacy. Our brains are wired to underestimate costs and overestimate our discipline. We remember the big, obvious expenses: rent, car, groceries. We forget the $12 streaming service, the $8 app subscription, the $25 gym we haven't visited in 3 months, the random Amazon purchase that felt small in the moment. Multiply those forgotten costs by 12 months, and the gap between what you think you spend and what you actually spend can be thousands of dollars a year. If you can't tell me right now, without checking, what you spent last month within a 10% margin of accuracy, that is a sign your financial situation is less controlled than you believe. Sign 3. Your savings rate is below 10%. Here's where it gets real. The general guidance from financial research is that a healthy savings rate sits somewhere between 15 and 20% of your income. Not of what's left over after your lifestyle, of your income first, before the lifestyle gets to it. But the average person saves far less. Some studies suggest the median working adult saves less than 5% of their income. Many save nothing at all in months where unexpected costs appear. And here's the part that creates a quiet, slow-moving catastrophe. If you are saving less than 10%, you are essentially betting that nothing will go wrong. No health emergency, no job loss, no car breakdown, no economic downturn. You are living a life with almost no financial buffer, and you've normalized it because everyone around you is doing the same. But normal isn't safe. Normal just means common. Sign 4. You're using credit for things that don't appreciate. This is the sign that separates people who are building something from people who are quietly consuming their future. Credit used strategically, for a home, for education, for a business, can be a tool. But credit used for vacations, clothing, restaurants, electronics, experiences that will be forgotten in 6 months, that is borrowing from your future self to fund your present self's lifestyle. And your future self will have to pay it back, with interest. The emotional trap here is powerful. Paying with a card doesn't feel like spending real money. Research in behavioral economics consistently shows that people spend significantly more when using credit compared to cash. The pain of payment is dulled, and that dulled pain is costing you. If you regularly carry a balance on a credit card, if the number doesn't go to zero every month, you are paying a premium to live a lifestyle you haven't actually earned yet. Sign 5. You have no emergency fund, or a dangerously small one. Let me paint you a picture. You're sitting at work, everything is normal, and then your car makes a sound it's never made before, or your landlord calls with news about the building, or a medical test comes back with something unexpected. Nothing catastrophic, but something that will cost $1,500 to $3,000 to resolve. What happens next in your life, right now, if that bill arrives tomorrow? For most people, the honest answer is credit card, borrow from family, or panic. The recommended emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of living expenses, exists precisely for these moments, not for luxury, for survival. But here's the psychological reality. Building an emergency fund feels pointless when money is tight, because you're setting aside money you can't see growing. There's no reward, no excitement. It just sits there. And so people don't build it, and they remain one unexpected event away from a spiral they can't easily escape. Sign 6. You measure wealth by monthly payments, not total cost. This one is everywhere in modern consumer culture, and it might be the most financially dangerous thinking pattern of this generation. It's only $200 a month. I can afford the monthly payment. It's just $50 a week. This is how people end up with car loans they can barely service, furniture on 24-month financing, phones on installment plans, and a dozen small subscriptions that together become a hidden tax on every paycheck. When you think in monthly payments instead of total cost, you lose the ability to see what you're actually spending. A $30,000 car at $450 a month for 72 months doesn't feel like $30,000. It feels like $450. But the total cost, with interest, might be $36,000. And you've just committed 6 years of monthly payments to a depreciating asset that will be worth far less than what you paid. The moment you start measuring wealth by what you can access rather than what you own, you've started playing a financial game you're likely to lose. Sign 7. You feel genuine anxiety about checking your bank account. Not mild curiosity, not casual checking, actual avoidance. The quiet resistance to opening the app. The vague dread before a statement arrives. The way you wait until after the weekend to look, because knowing the number would ruin Saturday. Financial avoidance is well documented in psychology. When the emotional pain of checking outweighs the perceived benefit, the brain protects you by simply not looking. And the less you look, the less control you have. And the less control you have, the worse it gets. It's a loop that self-reinforces over time. The account-checking anxiety is important not just as a symptom, but as a signal. Your relationship with money has become emotionally charged in a way that is working against you. Sign 8. Your most valuable asset is your job, and nothing else. This is the sign that most people in their 30s and 40s don't want to face. Ask yourself, if you stopped working tomorrow, not by choice, but because your job disappeared, how long could you sustain your current life? Not a scaled-back life, your actual current life. If the answer is less than 3 months, you have built a financial life that is entirely dependent on a single source of income that could be removed at any moment. Your employer can downsize, your industry can shift, your health can change, and if all you have is your salary, all of your financial security leaves with it. Truly stable financial lives are built on multiple layers: savings, investments, skills that transfer, assets that generate income even when you're not working. Most people have one layer. They've built a table with one leg and wonder why it feels unstable. Sign 9. You avoid thinking seriously about retirement. Here's a number that will make this concrete. If you want to retire at 60 with $3,000 a month to live on, a modest number in most cities, you need approximately $900,000 to $1 million saved and invested by retirement age. That's using a conservative 4% withdrawal rate. Now ask yourself, at your current savings rate, with your current investments, are you on track for that number? Most people don't know. And the reason most people don't know is that thinking about it is deeply uncomfortable. Because somewhere in the back of their minds, they sense the answer is no. And so they push the thought away. They tell themselves they'll deal with it later. They'll make more money. Things will work out. But compound interest is not forgiving to people who wait. Every year you delay investing is not just 1 year of lost growth. It's 1 year of lost compounding on everything that year's investment would have grown into. The cost of waiting is always higher than it feels in the present. Sign 10. Your social life is quietly draining your finances. This is the one that almost no one is willing to say out loud, because it sounds like you're blaming your friends. You're not. But this is real. Modern social life is expensive in a way that no previous generation experienced. Dinners that cost $80 a person, destination birthdays, group vacations where the average person spends more than they planned because the group dynamic makes it hard to opt out. Weddings, gifts, celebrations, concerts, events, all running on an unspoken social contract that says, if you're part of this, you participate. And behind all of it is the quiet, devastating power of social comparison. You see what your friends have. You see the trips they take, the restaurants they visit, the lives they appear to be living. And a part of your brain registers this as the standard, even when you can't afford it. Research on social spending consistently shows that people significantly overspend in group settings because the cost of social exclusion feels higher than the cost of financial strain. You'd rather be broke together than left out alone. Sign 11. You have more lifestyle than you have assets. Here's how to measure this quickly. Write down everything you have that has real financial value. Savings, investments, property equity, retirement accounts. Then write down everything you owe. Loans, credit balances, mortgages, any debt. The difference between those two numbers is your net worth. And for a shocking number of people with decent incomes, that number is either very small or actually negative. You can have a nice car, A well-furnished apartment, a closet full of clothes, a phone worth $1,200, and still have a negative net worth. Because none of those things are assets in any meaningful financial sense. They depreciate the moment you buy them. They don't generate income. They don't grow while you sleep. Lifestyle is visible. Assets are invisible. And modern consumer culture has made it very, very easy to build a life that looks wealthy from the outside and has almost nothing underneath. Sign 12. You believe things will get better on their own. This last one is the most important and the most dangerous. There's a belief that lives quietly in the minds of financially struggling people. That time itself will solve the problem. That the raise is coming. That things will stabilize. That next year will be different. That once the current pressure passes, then you'll start saving. Then you'll start investing. Then you'll get serious. But financial situations don't improve passively. They drift. And they almost always drift in the wrong direction, toward more debt, more lifestyle, more spending, more complexity, unless there is an active, intentional decision to change direction. The people who transform their finances don't do it because circumstances finally became easy enough to start. They do it while things are still hard, because they stopped waiting for permission from their own life. Here's the truth I want to leave you with. If several of these signs felt uncomfortably familiar, that's not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're normal. Because the system you're living in was not designed to make financial health easy. It was designed to make spending easy, debt easy, distraction easy, and self-awareness hard. But awareness is where everything starts. Not the perfect budget, not the perfectly timed investment. Awareness. Clear, honest, unflinching awareness of where you actually stand. You can't navigate a map you won't look at. The question isn't whether your financial situation is harder than you thought. It probably is. The question is, now that you know, what are you going to do differently tomorrow morning than you did this morning? That answer is the only one that matters.